I'm Arya Schwartz, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. We are back with WNBA Stocks, where Owen Pence and I check the market in the W. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for all the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. If you're looking to get tickets for this current WNBA season, look no further. Thanks to our sponsor, TickPick, you don't have to worry. The original no-fee ticketing site, an official ticketing partner of the WNBA champion, Chicago Sky. Use the link tickpick.com/Winsidr. That's tickpick.com/Winsidr for all your upcoming ticket purchases for the WNBA, NFL, NBA, or any other event. We're back, WNBA Stocks, where we check the pulse on the market, who's up, who's down, and then we got to do Stock Watch. Owen, how you doing?
I am doing amazing. I want to paint the full picture here for the listeners because this is not a video podcast, at least not yet. And I'm wearing a Kennedy Carter Atlanta Dream jersey, so I just want to make that very clear, be transparent here, so that I'm wearing a remnant of the past here.
Did you get it for sale?
I did not. I got it in real time. When Hollywood was drafted. It's one of the light blue throwbacks. It's a gorgeous jersey. So, I'm pleased with it. I paid full price and I continue to rock it here.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been very tempted to get a 30% off Diamond to Shields Chicago Sky jersey
Ooh,
because you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
yeah,
She
it
won a
just
ring. She won a ring. So
she won a ring, so it validates it, right? Because
exactly.
it's that give take of when you want to rock someone's jersey, but it's like so actually I'll be transparent. I'm working on a little book called A is for Augustus. Nobody steal my plans here. But it's obviously a WNBA themed alphabet book for my son. And as I'm going through doing all of it, I'm for the background for it's B is for bird for Sue Bird. And then I got to pick a yellow. But then you have players like Kayla McBride. Do I go with her Aces colors? Do I go with her Lynx colors? Then you got Deladon. Like, which team colors do you go with? It's always interesting when you're doing these things, where are you allowed to call Diamond a Chicago Sky fan or player and rock the jersey? I think so, because she won the ring, right?
100%. I love that. That might be the cutest, best idea I've ever heard. And
Just wait.
exactly. It's like it's like when someone gets inducted to the Hall of Fame and then they played for 3 teams and you gotta choose.
Yeah. I don't know who they let choose that. All right, let's get to the stocks up and down. I'm going first this week because I feel vindicated, mostly because Owen had this team as his down team last week.
Yep.
So let me just hop onto it. I got the Connecticut Sun as my up team. I was close to picking them last week, but I'm all in. They won 7 of the last 9. They bounced back from Brandy Poole and Kurt Miller having COVID and missing games, and they're like third or fourth string, basically. Their backup to the backup was the head coach for a stretch of games. And I think it was pretty evident that there was moments where they missed Kurt. They missed Brandy. I mean, Brandy, the reason I'm mentioning Brandy, normally I wouldn't necessarily even mention an assistant coach in this regard, but there's been instances during Kurt's tenure as Connecticut Sun head coach where Brandy's taken over. Brandy's also been coaching with Kurt for, I believe, like 25 years. So they know each other so well to the point there isn't that big of a drop off as, in my opinion, what we saw when they did not have those two on the sidelines. They go on a road stay, beat the Aces, the Mercury, and the Storm all on the road. Yes, they lost to Dallas at one point, and then they bounce back, win the next game. Then they lose to the Aces, bounce back, win the next game. My only concern, honestly, with this team is Jonquel Jones is not shooting enough. But last game against Seattle, when they were down big and she makes a huge comeback, she had 8 shot attempts in the second quarter alone. Maybe it was 7. Don't have it right in front of me. But the big thing for me was in recent games in the fourth quarter, we've been looking at Jonquel Jones stats as we've been doing our live streams, our watch parties, and consistently she's shot around 7 or 8 shots, honestly, often 6 shots going into the fourth quarter, which is just, I mean, I know, Owen, you can talk to this probably much better than I can, but when you're looking at her advanced stats, she's playing some of the best basketball of her career and she just won MVP. But the her usage, like in the sense of how many shots she's taking, how many times they're letting her be the active leader on offense, just isn't comparable to what we've been used to seeing. I know it's more comparable to when Alyssa Thomas was back with the team pre MVP season for JJ, but I just think the Connecticut Suns defense is not the stalwart defense that we kind of expected, but they're finding ways to win games early in the season, and you got to give them credit, especially with the injuries that they've been facing.
You completely nailed it in every regard, I think. And last week I kind of had the Sun as my down stock with the glaring caveat that it wasn't because of their play. It was simply that they lost their starting point guard, and that's gonna hurt you. But at least so far, it really hasn't hurt them. I do have some stats for what you were talking about specifically with John Quell. This is rather timely because she was just named Eastern Conference Player of the Week, and really seems to be gearing up. They're hitting their stride. But you're completely right. I mean, she's shooting less than 10 shots per game, 9.8, so right on the precipice. But that's the MVP. I mean, that's a ridiculously low number. And yet, Connecticut has the number one offense in the league, a hair ahead of Vegas, who's all anyone wants to talk about. Connecticut actually the best offensive rating, despite the fact that, as you said, Jones' usage is down back in line with her numbers from 2019. Her usage percentage in 2019, 22.6%. This year it's 23.2%. Last year in her MVP season with no Alyssa Thomas, it was north of 27%. So that's a pretty sizable gap between the MVP year last season and kind of this year and 2019. But here's the thing about it is that in 2019, they were a game away from winning it all and lost to the greatest offense in the history of the leagues from a statistical standpoint, the Mystics. So I think that right now we're seeing that at least in the regular season, these players can coexist and really thrive. But it's just weird because the eye test, it still doesn't fully align. There's still this kind of feeling, and it's been lessened, especially in that Seattle game for sure. But there's this feeling that John Quell occasionally will spend patches of the game roaming around on the perimeter, maybe not utilized to her fullest potential. And I think my worry would really be, is that going to be exacerbated in the playoffs? Will that become more prominent of an issue in the playoffs when you really need the offense to continue playing at this pace? But now you're going up against defenses who are specifically game planning to stop your bunch. So it's going to be something to monitor. But I mean, right now, I think things are awesome for Connecticut. They're fifth in defense, which honestly, I would have expected them to be a little bit higher, just because how are you supposed to score on Alyssa Thomas and Jonquel Jones? But I think that right now, I mean, it's like, yeah, they're rolling. Best net rating in the league, best offense in the league. This team really is just playing some great basketball.
No, it's the one funny thing that I want to say before we hop over to your up team is, in my mind, like it's such like a, I don't even know the right word, but the idea of Alyssa Thomas, who can't like raise her arms high enough to shoot a free throw or shoot a jump shot, um, playing good defense, is just like, I know she's a great defender,
Yeah.
but like in my mind, her inability to hold her hand up to block a shot would be like a huge deterrence to her being a great defender.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think that we always focus on, do Alyssa Thomas and Jonquel Jones fit on the offensive end? And I think what we never talk about enough is how well they fit on the defensive end. They really do things that complement each other tremendously well on defense. And we don't think about, how players fit on defense nearly as much as we do on offense, because it's easier to see on offense. It's more fun to talk about. But to what you're saying about AT, she's someone who just causes havoc. She wreaks havoc all across the floor. She's an incredible pick and roll defender. She's an incredible help defender, incredible in transition. She's really just scurrying all around the court. Whereas Jonquel is someone who is an elite rim protector and someone you want in the paint because of her rebounding prowess. So if you have Jonquel just anchoring the paint and denying everyone who enters, and then you've got AT is kind of free to go where she wants and just try to get steals and then create points in transition. It's a perfect defensive pairing, and I think we don't highlight that quite enough.
I agree. Give me your up team.
Up team, defending champion, Chicago Sky. You talked about them recently. The stock only continues to go up. I mean, this is just a team that now they have their team back, and really the final piece is Julie Alleman, who is reportedly going to be back this week joining the team. I think the thing I wanted to really talk about most right now, as far as the Sky are concerned, is James Wade's excellence as a general manager. I'm not sure everyone agrees about this, and that's fine. But to me, what he has done, and especially this offseason, what he did is just remarkable. Look at Rebecca Gardner, who's someone who's just come in as a rookie, the oldest rookie in the league, and is playing a key role in these games really, really well. Look at Emma Mieseman, who's someone that no one expected Chicago to be able to have the cap space to add, who's, on some nights been their best offensive player, just her passing in the high post completely transforming this offense. And they're just clicking. And then you're going to add, a player who we only saw in Indiana as a rookie, but who shot, north of 45% from 3-point land. They're adding another sniper and another person who averaged over 5 assists and who's really capable of passing. So I just think that what Wade did in this offseason was tremendous. And the biggest strength of this team was their biggest weakness maybe 2 years ago, when before they won the title, we were wondering, could this team win a title? And that's defense. They used to be a dynamic offensive team who was very middling defensively. And obviously, Candace Parker completely changed the team in that regard, because Candace Parker is one of the greatest defenders this league has ever seen. Right now, Chicago is second in defense, and they're just locking teams up. And so it's been really fun to watch. And their depth, which has been an issue in the past, is just proving not to be an issue right now, which is really, really important for a team where many of the key contributors are in their 30s, are on the back end of their careers, and for a team that knows that the regular season, it matters, but it doesn't matter even remotely as much as the playoffs do. You just need to make the playoffs. You just need to give yourself a chance. They can really afford to pace themselves here because they have Rebecca Gardner, because they have Dana Evans, which, again, another example of James Wade actually making a mistake, drafting, passing on Dana Evans, and then instead of doubling down, kind of saying, you know what, I realized that I messed up here. Let me go and fix that. He gets Dana Evans, and now she's playing really well. Azurá Stevens, Wade traded for Azurá Stevens. She's coming off the bench and is just a remarkable presence on both ends. Another defender who just makes it really difficult for people to score. And so, I mean, this team is just looking really solid, better than they were in the regular season last year. And now they kind of have the ring to give them confidence. They know what needs to be done. I think the Sky have to be feeling really, really good about where they're at.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I'm excited for Julie. The one thing that I'll kind of push back on is how, as the Sky are trending up, it's not so easy, as we saw with Alyssa Thomas, right, last season. It's not so easy to just add a player um into the mix of things and have it just, continue riding smoothly. Typically there are some bumps at that point. So am I excited for, late in the season? Yes. When Julie comes, though, I think you have to be realistic that there are going to be some bumps in the road. And then when she comes back, I know, just based on a quick, I really should understand this better, but the CBA can get real confusing. But temporary suspension for Julie means that when she comes back, she's already counted towards the roster, salary cap wise, but not roster spot wise. So she'll join in. What's that going to do to Gardner's time? You know what I mean? Dana Evans, like there's definitely questions because of the strengths that we've seen on this team and what's going to happen to those players when someone else comes into the fold and needs a couple more minutes. And can she deliver? As you pointed out, statistically, what we've seen from her in the W so far indicates yes. But I'm excited to see what ends up happening. Right. For those who don't know, Winsidr has been hosting some WNBA watch parties. We're using a cool new platform called Playback. We're able to watch it all together, so there are no spoilers. We've been doing some fun giveaways of vintage WNBA jerseys, posters, and soon we'll be doing WNBA Top Shots also. It's free to sign up, and honestly, it takes like 2 minutes to sign up. It's super easy. It's really fun. And there's a chat bar on the side, so you can chat with everyone watching. There's little videos. We welcome people on stage. We're gonna have some cool guests of people who are, players, coaches, agents, former players, former coaches, things like that. And obviously, we'll always be bringing on different Winsidr staff to talk about what they're seeing in the different games. Owen, it's time now for the downside. You want to go first, or should I go first?
I'll go first. It's that time. It's the saddest time of the week. We got to talk about the down stocks. All right, look, my team this week is Indiana. And Indiana was recently, I think last week, they were my up stock. And so this is, I think, one of the fun parts of this exercise is that when you actually look at it, like what's really changed 7 days ago where Indiana was versus where they are now? Very little. So this is more about like an exercise in perspective, where last week, I really wanted to highlight how good the vibes are on this team and how it finally, after years, they're still in the longest playoff drought in the league, how it finally feels like things have turned around, how it finally feels like this is an honest attempt at a rebuild. They really seem very genuine about putting young players in positions to succeed and, most importantly, to develop their games. And so that was why I had them as an upstock. It's like, well, they're not going to be winning games this season. They had a few good results early in the year, but ultimately this is about the future. And for the first time in a long time, really since the Tamika era, not her GM era, but her playing days, it feels like the fan base is really excited about where this team is headed. And so nothing I'm about to say negates that. I stand by all of that. However, there are, I think, also things to say that, are critical about what this team is doing right now, given that they are in a rebuilding phase. And I think, namely, the number one thing kind of on my list of gripes, if you will, is Destiny Henderson's playing time.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been horrible, but it's been very inconsistent game to game. And I simply wonder, when you have Queen Egbo in the starting lineup, when you have Nalissa Smith in the starting lineup, and you have Emily Engstler, frankly, getting a lot of minutes, why is Destiny Henderson the odd player out? And what is the purpose of starting Danielle Robinson? Now, I get it. D-Rob is like so beloved, just the most awesome person, such a great presence in the locker room, such a great leader. I can totally understand the argument that she helps the young players develop and that presence on the court is very valuable, and it is. But you can do that from the bench. You can do that coming into the game off the bench. And when you have Henny one game playing 24 minutes, and then the next game playing 9 minutes, and then the next game playing 12 minutes, you have to wonder whether her growth is getting a little bit stunted. And I think the most frustrating thing for me is that Henderson's looked really good in a lot of regards. I mean, there's certainly things to work on, and there's certainly rough moments, but she's someone who helps your spacing. She hits shots. She tries tremendously hard on defense and does a really good job, given the fact that she's always one of the smaller players on the floor. if you are going to dedicate starting spots to young players, why not give the starting spot to the young point guard rather than to the veteran point guard who really, if we're being honest, has no place in the future of this franchise, even though it's really great to have her around right now. And so I think we're seeing, some pretty rough basketball from Indiana recently. They really ran. I mean, Atlanta has the best defense in the league right now and is just absolutely killing it. Biggest surprise of the season so far. But Indiana, just looked kind of atrocious for long stretches against Atlanta yesterday. And Indiana's got the worst true shooting percentage in the league, despite the fact that Victoria Vivians has been really good for them this year. They just the basketball's getting tougher and tougher to watch for them, and I think I was expecting with the head coaching change to see Destiny Henderson slide into that starting role. And I've been a little disappointed now that we've had a few games here with Carlos Knox, at the controls, that hasn't really been the case, and that Henderson's minutes continue to be so inconsistent. The offense just looks kind of stale right now. They're really stagnant. They're missing a lot of looks inside that should be made, and you just have to wonder why the entire purpose of these games isn't just to play the young guys as much as possible and give them as many reps as you can.
Oh yeah, I mean you're tied for last place in the league. I agree with everything you're saying. How quickly the times change from when you change your head coach midseason. Very often you pull off that first game victory, and since then they've been on a 3-game losing streak, 2-8 in their last 10 games. Um, I think you really touched on everything. But my thing is, it's not about who starts. And I know coaches always say this, and it's like the number one thing they'll say. It's about not about who starts, it's about who finishes the game. I agree with that in this regard of like I don't care if Henny is starting or not. If you want to start D Rob to kind of set the presence and then have her have the ability to kind of talk Henny through it, fine. But I feel like it should be a 50-50 split of minutes minimum. And that's that's me holding back a lot. If you've listened to this podcast for a long time now, you probably know my feelings on D Rob. Great person, great human. Um, Lucky to be in this league right now with the positioning and the style of play that's going on. And honestly, and we've talked about it, it's like her contract is great for her. Get that back. But yeah, Hennessy's the future. And yeah, like I here's my thing is like what you touched on about you're playing all the other rookies. And I just what this team's going to look like next year. Is this a situation of Carlos Knox, hoping that having a veteran out there is more of an extension of himself, possibly. But then I put that on him for not, bonding with Henny and saying, hey, like, you're the new leader. This is the new position that you need to take over now that I'm in charge, and kind of growing together, right? Like, this is first time being a head coach in the W. Now they're growing together in this role. And I kind of like the idea and the storyline of a coach coming in mid-season and just like putting it all in, putting, you know, putting his rep on the rookie point guard who's just been honestly insanely impressive all season long. So sorry, I can't disagree with you on that. Washington Mystics are my down team. This team is built to kind of resemble the 2019 championship team. They have more talent, or they have enough talent to win a lot more games than they have been winning. Their offense looks stagnant. Just people standing around kind of waiting for someone to play some hero ball. They've had a few nice halves and a few wins against talented teams. And then everyone wants to start talking about how they're contenders or, they're ranked here or whatever. For me, the challenging part, and I've talked to Matt Cohen, our Winsidr beat reporter for the Washington Mystics, and we joke about this, but like you can't. It's so hard to cover this team right now because they're the Elena Deladon team or the Elena Deladon list team, and when Deli's been there, this team honestly hasn't been that much better. Like, yes, their offensive production goes up, but obviously it's going to go up when you have someone of Deladon's level and standard and and just MVP prowess, obviously the offense is going to look better. I haven't seen Deladon be that effective defensive player like we saw in their championship run. Um, and obviously, look, going into the season, you knew Deladon was going to be missing some games. Clark was going to be missing some games. You knew a lot more was going to be on the shoulders of Cloud and Atkins. They need to be leaders, and Shatori and Rui and Hawkins need to start producing offensively. The problem right now is people are being too passive, and there hasn't been like that switch in players' minds that's okay, Deladon's not here. Everybody needs to chip in to produce to fill the shoes, because when you're missing your MVP and you know you're going to be, that has to be an easy light switch. It needs to be a dimmer, basically, where you're dimming it down when Delhi's out there and you're dimming it back up when Delhi's not there. Something that you brought up when we were talking about Connecticut was that when they pushed the Mystics to Game 5 of the finals and just kind of, you were talking about it from the Connecticut perspective, but like from the DC perspective, something that I don't think that's talked about enough is, let's be realistic. That was the greatest offense in league history. And realistically, the Connecticut Sun didn't stand a chance to go to 5 games if Deladon wasn't banged up and didn't miss a lot of play in that series. I think DC could have arguably swept that series, but definitely it doesn't go to 5 if Deladon's not injured. So for me, I think this is a team that was trying to, as much as they say, kind of, change, what do they say, like jumpstart or like restart the style of play, or just the style of the organization. But I think that they basically are just trying to soup up the 2019 style, and we're seeing the biggest question mark of that was what happens if Deladon's not there, and now we're seeing that on a semi-consistent basis.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. Firstly, you're throwing me for a loop, which I love because I thought
Sorry, I went on like a ridiculous rant there. I apologize.
no, that was beautiful. I've got a lot to say because I actually thought you were going with a different team this week. So
Oh, did I mess you up? I'm
you didn't
sorry.
mess me up at all. This is a great challenge here. No, so I have a lot of thoughts on Washington. Actually, I'm I think I'm a little more positive on the Mystics right now. I hear everything you're saying, and I think it's all accurate. I just wouldn't. I'm not really convinced that the team that was just rolling everyone to start the season was all that real. I think they've kind of settled into the team that they're going to be during this regular season. They're fourth in net rating behind Connecticut, Chicago, and Vegas. So that to me is appropriate. That's kind of right where they should be. Um, I think the Deladon thing is interesting, right? Because they're going to make the playoffs. The Mystics will be in the playoffs this year. And again, as we saw with Chicago last year, okay, you just need to get there. You need to get there and be healthy. And if your former, two-time MVP has to sit out all the road games, has to sit out maybe even the majority of the regular season games, well, guess what? Their depth is so good that they're going to still be able to maintain a winning record, even with Deladon only available for a portion of the games. I think that what I'm really excited about with this team uh, is how well a few of the role players are playing. I think that the two I want to talk about, Ariel Atkins and Shakira Austin, have been killing it in my eyes.
Hmm.
The team is just consistently across the board way better when those two are on the floor. Especially Shakira Austin's on-off numbers are kind of ludicrous for a rookie. She's just made such a massive impact, and immediately, and this isn't really a shot at the other player, but Shakira Austin is just clearly better than Elizabeth Williams immediately after entering the league. And so I think that's a huge boon for Washington, because that is that was a question mark coming into the season, is who's going to play the 5, and can this team go small, and then will they get exposed on the boards, et cetera, et cetera. Shakira Austin has really made a lot of those concerns kind of evaporate. I think that the players that would worry me in terms of maybe haven't been producing consistently, and they will need to step it up or kind of find their peak game to make this team a real legitimate contender. are Maisha Hines-Allen and Alicia Clark. And I think, both have battled injuries. Obviously, Alicia's coming off one of the worst injuries you can sustain as a basketball player. They just haven't been that good with those two on the floor. They've been better when those two have been on the bench. And this team is not going to be able to do what it wants to do and realize its fullest potential if two of your real, key core two-way players just aren't themselves. So I'm not that worried. I mean, Deladon's looked really good to me. They're way better, obviously, when she's on the floor. They've been kind of average when she sits. I just think that the way Shakira's playing, the way Ariel's playing, and the fact that they got so much depth. I mean, you look at someone like Kennedy Burke, who's always been a favorite of mine, who, I was really hyped when Seattle traded for her, and I've always wanted her to kind of find a spot in the league and find a home. She's someone who's coming off the bench for this team and making an impact, an awesome perimeter defender, and a lot of holes in her offensive game, but that's a really valuable regular season player when Deladon isn't playing a large portion of the games, and when you have some players like Clark and Hines Allen who are still trying to find it. So overall, I'm not that concerned. I think I'm a little higher on Washington right now than you are, but undoubtedly they've kind of come back down to earth. They haven't looked great. The loss to Chicago yesterday was, fairly definitive, not really that close. But I'd wait and see. I trust the process, so to speak.
Trust the process. The 5-5 in the last 10, 2-game losing streak right now, 7-5 overall. No, but I hear you. You make good points. Stock watch. All right. Quick blurb about you're gonna pick a team, but I'm gonna go first because this is the team that you probably thought I was going down with. I kind of did a switch up. Seattle Storm are my stock watch. We saw Stewie miss 2 games, or was it more? For being locked up in Phoenix, basically. Missing those games, Phoenix gets an easy advantage there. Then we see Ezzy and Sue go down with COVID, miss a few games, and this team just looked lost. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm here. We need to start questioning some of Noelle Quinn's decisions. We can get into that later on. The point is more so, I'm going to be with a fine tooth and comb. I don't know if that's fine tooth comb or whatever the phrase is. I'm gonna be watching the Seattle Storm team. They have the talent. We know that they went all in. We keep kind of expecting them to have that just dynamic, scary, fast-paced offense that we've seen them have over recent years. It just hasn't looked that good. We've seen flashes, but not consistency. Great teams find ways to win. They blew a huge lead against Connecticut the other night. And before that, they scored like less than 50 points in a game, basically. Just an abysmal loss. What are your thoughts? Who's your stock watch for this week?
Just a quick little thing on Seattle, because that was who I thought you were going to go with the downturn. Seattle's ninth in offense right now. When was the last time the Storm were ninth in offense? And I think that the biggest thing right now to watch going forward to keep us on topic here with Seattle is that when their on-off splits are like unsustainable in terms of when Stewie plays, they're rolling, and it's just a disaster when she doesn't. And kind of the flip side of that is that the team has been better when Sue Bird is not on the floor. Just all stats courtesy WNBA.com, advanced stats, all kinds of good stuff in there. But that's something to monitor going forward. This isn't the prime Sue Bird. This isn't even post prime Sue Bird. This is the last season, and this team
Might not be last season though.
You just never know. You just never know. But I'll tell you this offense is not working as currently constructed. And if Seattle wants to make any noise in the playoffs, they're going to have to switch some things up. And this gives me a chance to do really a great segue, just how I drew it up here, into my Stockwatch team, the Atlanta Dream, who are traveling to Seattle to play tomorrow night in a game that I cannot wait to watch, because we have the Seattle Storm, ninth in offense, against the best defense in the WNBA. I mean, Tanisha Wright, what can you say? Like, she just came in.
Big fan. Big fan of what she's doing.
Huge fan. I mean, it's awesome. This team was unwatchable last year, completely unwatchable. not only are they watchable now, they've got a winning record. They have not only do they have the best defense in the league, it's like historically good right now. Their defense is like, one of it, honestly, I have to do the digging on this, but I think it might be on pace right now to be like the greatest defense in league history. Shout out to Spencer Nussbaum, who tweeted out some stats in that regard a few days ago. So I don't know where they stand currently, but whatever. The point is that this team is just completely different from the one we saw last season. Ryan Howard obviously has injected so much life into the franchise. I think everyone knew that she was offensively so gifted, but we're really seeing her play some awesome defense. Cheyenne Parker is back and has been really good. So Atlanta travels to Seattle on Tuesday and then Phoenix later in the week. That's the team I'm really excited to watch right now, because if they can figure out a way to score points consistently, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, they're going to be in the playoffs. And if you had, other than B Terrell, legend, shout out to B, but other than him, if anyone had Atlanta in the playoffs this year, I feel like you're lying, because I certainly did not see this coming.
I love B, but I'm just gonna say he didn't call playoffs. He called they're winning it
He
all.
called for
So,
winning it all, which I
so
disrespect immensely.
yeah. I mean, hey, you know what? I'm all for the hot takes. We'll be back next week with WNBA stocks, where myself, Aria Schwartz, and Owen Pence discuss where the market is in the WNBA.